Welcome everybody to Spike Down. My name's Keith Fortune. Joining me is Roy, and Challengers is back, baby. We're back. The action is kicked off. The off season felt super long, but it is gone, and we're diving straight into the season. And what a better way to start than jumping into after week one, heading into week two. We kind of get to see the players, and it gives us some great talking points. But I wanted to start with talent predictions because Roy, some of them. Actually, you know what? I can say this. All of them got some of them got some right. A lot of them no 100%ers. No one got 100%. So
let's see if we can get 100%, Keith, because to be fair, we're here roasting them, but we haven't even put ourselves in their shoes yet. So before I go too crazy on them, I'm gonna cut them some slack. It was a hard week of matches to predict. You know, it's the opening week. We're still learning about these teams, so we got to give them some slack. But no one is safe. I'm just saying that right now. Like, no one is safe.
Yeah, no one's gonna get off. I will tell you, however, I did some predictions on my end. I got everyone wrong but the oxygen one. Or everyone
you got
right.
All wrong.
I'm sorry. Oh my goodness, everyone wrong. No, I'm not that bad. I got everything right, correct, except the oxygen one. And to be honest, I think I get a little leeway there because I don't know if anyone expected Moist. I mean, clearly some of the predictions did, some of the talent, but
for sure. So how are we gonna do this? We're gonna go one by one.
Yeah, let's just run through list by list, day one by day one. I mean, immediately you look at day one, match one, Oxygen, Moist. Everyone's out except Dryad and I Hold Shift to try to get a flawless. So immediately, good to I Hold Shift and Dryad. I want to know what they were thinking making that prediction. I mean, I guess it is base, but kind of a wild take week one to just get a shy away from Oxygen, who have won everything and haven't lost to Moist, and Moist X Shopify in the off season.
For sure. I'm actually just shocked that it's not more 50-50, right? Because like when I look at that matchup, like, yeah, Moist did make like a sort of last second change to their roster, but I don't really like when I'm seeing this matchup, I'm not thinking like, oh, Oxygen is a clear winner, or oh, Moist is a clear winner. Like, to me, it feels extremely 50-50. Like it could go either way, and it pretty much did. Yeah.
And that is super exciting to think about Oxygen and Moist X Shopify and how that builds. We got a mix. Well, not a mix. A majority sad. One Winthrop. Gompers is a big fan. And it looks like the sad train rolled into the station. M80, not much to say there. Doing what they do best. Nitro's in there. That team seems to be starting to click. I wouldn't say it's a comfortable feeling yet, but I would definitely say they're on the right track. TWT, Core, YFP, Thinking Men, a big mix there, and I think rightfully so.
Yeah, that one is definitely a toss-up for sure. I mean, we didn't really know what to expect from TWT, right? They made a lot of roster changes. There was a lot of like players getting moved up, moved down to different teams, so it was like a massive toss-up. And of course, Core is coming from the open qualifiers, excuse me. And I mean, they're a long-standing roster, and they're probably one of the only teams in Challengers besides obviously the big three that have like a full-on, like, they have a whole team. Like, they have a coach, an analyst, 5 players. You know, I mean, they have a manager that's extremely active with the roster. Like they're ready to roll. They have a whole cavalry.
Yeah, they have a daily agenda, that's for sure. But more organized than me, I'd imagine. YFP Thinking Men, another split one. YFP ended up taking that one in the end, and Turtle Troop Glazers. One Glazer fan in Vancillion, and he was almost looking like a genius. But a third map TTR pull it back. An exciting first week, I'd say. Pretty much, I would say everyone did okay on their picks. I can't blame them for the picks they make. You know, it'd be nice to be perfect. But a lot of these teams run out entities, and I'm just excited to see the predictions next week because you and I get to sit here and talk about them and have some fun on their behalf without them being here. It's kind of fun. So
I love that. I love that one-sided roast session. It's perfect.
yeah. Better not say anything on Twitter, guys. Please don't clap back at us. We're sensitive. Matches that stood out last week, as we mentioned, a lot of good matches. The teams that we wanted to performed, and one of them is M80 playing the newly crowned TSM team. And it was a close game overall, Roy. I felt like Nitro and the boys were a little slow to get in that match pace, but the same could be said about TSM. It was kind of them taking turns, getting comfortable and figuring things out. But M80, I mean, what else can you say about that team other than looking super solid overall?
I mean, I'll throw in one thing that we can talk about M80 besides us just completely glazing them.
Of course.
I think their compositions are actually really interesting. they're really leaning into the kind of like the duelist Omen with Koala Noob, right? They have a pretty interesting comp on Icebox, which I thought they played phenomenally, by the way. I really like their approach. But I mean, just for that matchup though, I do want to touch on one specific point, right? Is that like TSM is kind of like a Frankenstein roster, right? Like it got put together super last minute. There's a lot of changes that were happening, a lot of uncertainty with the roster coming into like the beginning of the split. But they kind of showed their potential in the first map. But the big takeaway for me is that clearly their map pool is not extremely developed at the moment. And that's a big asterisk, is like at the moment. They have the pieces, they have very talented players. The season could go either way for them. But for right now, it's very clear that M80 has a much stronger and deeper map pool, which I think a lot of teams are going to have to match if they really want a chance to come out on top in that group.
And before I dive into M80, because everyone knows I'm an M80 stan, a couple highlights for TSM, right? I think Poise looked really good, someone we haven't seen in quite some time. He seemed to really have that ice in his veins, winning some really big rounds for TSM when they're scrapping back on Lotus. Aprodo, you know, the Aprodig, still applicable, still getting those big kills on some eco rounds that they converted. And then obviously my M80 love, Nitro, on the pretty much pure KJ, happened Lotus Icebox for the first two, and that's all he got to play. It was nice to see BCJ back into match play, and I'm assuming for both of them. I'm assuming for both of them, right? It's a big relief to kind of get in. Nitro said they've been scrimming for 8 months leading into this first match. That's a long time, and a lot can go wrong in your head leading into 8 months into one match. But I do want to say Xander and Ismo, exactly how I remember them from last year.
M80 just doesn't really have a weakness. Like they have great players. Their role diversity is amazing. Like all of them are just so flexible. Like Koala can just jump on an Omen. And like it feels like nothing has changed. Like he's still going for the hyper aggressive plays. Like he's still kind of doing his thing. Like BCJ is a great fill for the EU that they lost from last season. And of course Nitro is a massive pickup for that roster as well. And like, dude, the coaching staff is also great. Like they still have power hitters in the coaching staff. Like MA is just such a strong team. But I mean, on the other side, we do kind of need to touch on like the sort of roles with TSM that's happening right now, right? Is like this is Seven's debut in the initiator role. We haven't really seen him play that role before. He was a duelist at one point, and he kind of got Sentinel locked, and then now we're like seeing him on the info initiator, which is like a massive change of pace, communication. Like it's just a completely different role and just how it functions within the team, right? So I think it's just going to take a little bit of time for them to kind of like work out some of the rust, I think. But once they get going, I think we'll see a much stronger TSM.
Yeah, I'm excited. I want to keep my eye on Sim and kind of see his player development. Somebody who was pretty much primarily main jet, a little bit of Raze last season. Now we get him thrown on a KO and Icebox, right? And you mentioned TSM map pool. I mean, I'm really interested to see, because, you know, the other 4 players, we know what they can do. We know the roles they can play. Sim is kind of an unknown still, where we know his talent, and it was mainly shown on, you know, the Jet. It was mainly shown on the Raze, and he's played a little bit of KO, but I really want to see how that can develop further. So keep your eyes on TSM. Definitely a team not to sleep on at M80. Great to see them jump right into form, and to hear from Nitro, and cool storylines there that are only going to progress. And the other big match that we want to cover, shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, is Moist Oxygen. One of the games that, you know, when the schedule came out and I saw it was the first match of the season, I was like, okay, they know what they're doing scheduling this first, and the players apparently knew what they were doing too, because this BO3 I would say delivered at, I want to say 2 of the best teams in Challengers. I know I just talked about M80, but got to be the best 2 teams in Challengers right now.
From my perspective, Moist and Oxygen are part of the big 3, and I'm not talking Kendrick, J. Cole, and Drake. I'm talking. Good.
Thank you for clarifying.
I had to make sure, you know, like Moist, Oxygen, M80 are like, in my mind, like they're in the S tier of Challengers right now. And then from there, it's just like we don't really know the power rankings. And of course, by the end of the season, like obviously there's so much talent in this scene, right? Like anyone can end up on top. Like we never know what's really going to happen. But in my current power ranking perspective lens, as I shall say, it's looking like M80, Moist, and Oxygen are the big 3 right now.
Yeah, and this series completely delivered. And not only did we get some really cool maps in really cool orders. I'm a big fan of Lotus. I think it's a perfect first map pick if you're comfortable on it. Split map number 2 in this series and bind to round it out. Every map had a different feel to it. The comps were completely different, at least from map to map. There wasn't a lot of overlap. Like, there are 3 players who played, or actually 4 players who played 3 different agents across 3 maps. That's really cool to see. And that shows the depth of Moist, and it shows the depth of Oxygen. But I think my main overarching point of this series, it felt like the Verno Redux duo, hard supported, hard setup, really pushing for it. Where Moist and Shopify, I felt like they had the depth where Oxygen had the firepower. It's an interesting balance to me.
And that's very weird to say, because when you look at Oxygen, like you see Dapper, you see Scuba, Redux, Verno, like all of them are just crazy at what they do, right? But I think this meta is honestly just a real test of flexibility, I feel like, right? Because like last year, we were seeing a lot of like comp singularities, like people running mostly like meta comps with like slight variations, right? But like now we're seeing like every map, people are just taking out comps, so they're reinventing the wheel, right? And it's just like the meta is pretty wide open right now. So the teams that are the most flexible, I think, will probably end up like the ones finding the most success, right? Especially with like how like versatile the map pool is right now, where it's like every map is completely different in the way it plays and then pacing and the compositions. So yeah, I'm not surprised to see like the flexibility coming out from the MXS side.
Yeah, and I think we knew it before this series started, but Raze is currently the go-to duelist to play. Jet's kind of taken a bit of a backseat, and I think when I see Redux and Mata across 3 completely different maps, that split Lotus, you could get the Jets, more so split, but to go through 3 maps and have both your primary duelists playing the exact same duelist, and I want to note also your controller players, both primary controller players, playing Viper throughout the entire all 3 maps. I think that really shows you where we're at in the meta, and the other 3 players on each team, big flex. And if this is kind of the creativity we're going to get throughout the season, I think we're going to see some cooler comps in Challengers than we are in VCT. Hot take, maybe?
That might be a slight hot take. I feel like the comps have mostly been tame. Like, there are teams who are experimenting to some degree, but I think a lot of teams are just kind of, there's like a variable right now happening on the certain maps. But the most important thing, in my opinion, is like the flexibility again, like kind of a major talking point. Like if you look at Verno playing Killjoy and Gecko over 3 maps, right? Like, how are you on Sentinel on one map and then you're the main info initiator on the other, right? And same thing with Brock. It's like, it's the same thing. It's like these teams are just like, there's so much role sort of like swaps between maps that it's really just a massive test. But to be fair, we did get Lotus, Split, and Bind, which are the Raze maps right now. So it's a 50-50 map pool. Like you see Jets a lot on the Icebox, you see Jets a lot on the Breeze, right? Like it's still a very meta and on just not those 3 maps essentially.
yeah, and maybe that's, I'm excited to see, you know, as we progress through the stages, what kind of maps these teams are going to lean to. Really cool map pool though to kick it off. Let's talk about feelings. I know episode 1 we're talking about feelings, but no, not Roy's and I's feelings we have for each other, but feelings we have on exciting teams. We've written down 3. We've written down SAD, Glazers, YFP. I'll let Roy kick it off with SAD. What a cool team though.
I'm trying to come off not biased because I have been teammates with a lot of the players on SAD, but I think the talent on that team is super underrated. Like Darkest, such a strong player. Coburg, very strong player. Zolstol, like you look at this roster, right? You see Bob. I mean, Bob is an extremely vocal like player, right? Like she's been wanting to IGL. She's been in that kind of like leadership position for a while, but you look at that roster and you think Zolstol is IGLing. Like, what? That's so random, kind of. But there's just so much vocality on that team that it gives them a sort of edge that not a lot of teams have, right? Because like, yeah, you can have a freeze time caller, but they have 3 super strong and well-drilled mid-rounders and people who can just like take over the round at any given time, offer ideas at any given time, right? And they're very creative with the way they play. Look at their Icebox comp. What? Reyna, Jet, Gecko, Deadlock, Viper. Like, what realm are we in? And then you look at the score, 13-4. Almost a clean sweep on their attack side Icebox. 10 rounds, and the only 2 rounds that they lost were Pistol and Eco. Is that not wild?
I mean, that is kind of a domination, and what a cool comp on a map that has slightly changed. Overall, this SAD team, I guess, to give my overall thoughts, is surprisingly. Let me make sure I'm phrasing this correctly. Surprisingly good if you don't follow tier 2. if this is your first time watching SAD and seeing them, I can understand and be like, who are these people? Why are they so good? Like, I know Bob, but who's Coburg? And I understand that feeling. No shade to Coburg. But
Damn, my boy
they
just got done
dropped
like that.
one map in qualifiers. And you look at their history, winning events. They played the Sean Garrett Showdown, making semifinals against Moisex Shopify, both games, 13-5, 14-6, tough losses. But that was the moment, and even a little before that, as soon as Bob came into this team, and I saw, the first few matches with her were just, everything was clicking. I was watching them against Complexity, GX3 in that Sean Garrett's event, against Turtle Troop, which they won, by the way. And that's when I started to take notice. Obviously, I knew these players through Tier 2 before, but there's something special about this combination of players. And I think you touched on is their communication must be just miles ahead of other teams, because firepower, I could say 3 or 4 other teams in Challengers that theoretically on paper have more firepower, but there's something about this team that just makes them better.
They just play Valorant. They're just Valoranters. Yeah. Like they're kind of like the Zoomer-esque Valorant team that you can think of when you're thinking of like creativity, their approach to the game. But I think my final talking point about SAD is it's like their breakout matches right now, right? Like this is the first time they've appeared on such a high level of Valorant. Like they've been to some events, they've competed in like one-off events, but this is like a league, and there's a lot more eyes on them now. And I think there is some level of like jitterness happening in their psyche, right? Where like they're gonna shed that, and when they do shed that, they're going to like level up almost immediately, and we're gonna be like, wow, what is this team? But on the other side, I mean, Winthrop did show a lot of grit, especially on the second map, right? Like the Lotus was such a battle. Comps are very tame there. There wasn't anything crazy going on, and then it's nice to see that people are still running meta comps on Ascent, so it's still the same Jet KO comp. But there's still like some sort of like tweaking happening with the way they're approaching the map, so you still see some creativity within a constrained mental box trap thing going on on that meta. But yeah, it's nice to see that these teams are trying to do something new and fresh, and I think they will level up over the season.
And speaking of new and fresh, the Glazers, players we know, players who have been around in the scene pretty much since the beginning. Drone, way back in the TSM days, Precision and Riku. If you know Tier 2, you know these players specifically. A hard first match for them, jumping in against a Turtle Troop team that honestly, on paper might have the best roster they've ever had. Maybe that's a hot take. But I think this version of Turtle Troop could be the best version of Turtle Troop you've ever seen. And I'll leave it at that, I guess.
Yes, I'm a big asterisk next to could.
Yes.
And then we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, it could. But the Glazers, Riku, again, we talk about flexibility. Just in their first match alone, Riku played Initiator, Sentinel, and Controller.
What? Like 3 different roles.
3 different roles. and almost, it still was only a -1. You have Drone playing Arrays and a Sova. You have Zachary playing Cypher. You have him on Jet. You have him on a Yoru. And then you have Precision straight Initiator 1 Control. Like, the flexibility in this team is crazy. Sometimes it's to a detriment, but I think teams like the Glazers, who have the firepower and have that history with each other, can afford a little bit of flexibility. Because let's be honest, this team has, I already said firepower, but it's mild in comparison to some teams. And I think flexibility is their key in my opinion.
Are we talking about Turtle Troops or TG? Because that could,
Glazers.
Yeah, it almost feels like what you said applies to both of these teams, because the talent is just impeccable. Yeah. But I think the one thing that Glazers do have that not a lot of teams probably have is like their tenure as a roster, right? Like they've been together for a while. Yeah, maybe they didn't have the most insane first showing, but I think we're gonna be pretty impressed with them throughout the season. I think they're gonna be very cohesive. They have a lot of talent, a lot of vocal players, a lot of people offering ideas on that roster. I think we'll see a pretty good showing from them. But Turtle Troops look pretty good, man. They look solid.
Yeah, that was a hard match for the Glazers to win. And Turtle Troop, potentially part of the big 3. Who knows? We'll talk about that later. And the last one on the list, YFP. One that I think a lot of people maybe slept on coming into the season. They made some roster shuffles. We weren't really sure what kind of YFP we're going to get. And then they rock up match day with Penny, Bones, Thief, Physic, Jonah. And you go, that's a roster. And not only, in my opinion, not only even do I go, that's a roster, but Bones and Penny together is kind of nasty.
No, that's a roster with 4 question marks at the end. Like, and I'm not even trying to be. It's not even shade. It's just like wow, what a Frankenstein roster. But somehow it is so good. And I think what throws me off is like the YFP banner org team name. They've had a lot of rosters, but I think this definitely is their best one, right? Yeah. And like Bones is such a good player, and he's played so many different roles. And like then you think like this guy's probably like what, 16 years old? Like,
yeah, he's
played literally every role in the game. He's like he's kind of what Zekin was back when Zekin was in like tier 3 and tier 2, right? He's like Zekin was playing so many roles. He was like on Sova at one point, and he started playing like all these different roles. Like Bones is kind of in the same trajectory as Zekin, right? Like it's a lot going on. Then you have like Physique and Jonah, who are like very vocal players. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's Physique IGLing for that team, by the way. And it's kind of weird because I've known Physique for a while, and like he was never a leader back then. But like I know as of recent, he's kind of swapped into that leadership position, which I think is really, really cool because I think he's super smart. So I think they're gonna cook up. I feel like they're gonna cook up.
I think so. I mean, shout out to Bones, obviously going all the way back to Teal Team, if anyone remembers that.
Teal Team.
That was kind of when Bones came on the scene. It's good to see him growing and becoming the player. I think back then we were all like, man, this kid's going to be really good. And we're starting to finally see that cemented. Excited for YFP. Moving on to Future. The Future. I know what you're thinking. We've made it through week 1. We're moving into week 2. What are the matches? What ones should I watch? I mean, the answer is you watch all of them. But the secondary answer is there's a couple that stand out to Roy and I. The first one, you know, we've talked about both these teams. SAD M80. I don't know about you, Roy. I have a feeling that one is must-watch cinema.
It's going to be something, whether it's IMAX or indie film. It's going to be one or the other, but it's going to be something for sure. But, I mean, for M80, it's like, from my mind, it's like almost like a win-lose, right? Like, wow, that's so crazy. What does that mean, Roy? Like, obviously, if someone's going to win, someone's going to lose. But, like, if you win, you're just M80. If you lose, we kind of get a massive understanding of where SAD really is, right? Like, this... When you play the big 3, right? Again, M80, Oxygen, Moist. When you play these teams, you're going to get tested on like many levels. You're going to get tested individually. Like, are you better than individual players, right? You're going to get tested in terms of like strategy, because they obviously have been cooking up for a while and they have a very deep map pool and strategy pool. And you're going to get tested in chaos, right? Like chaos management is like an element of the game that is like on a whole separate realm of Valorant, right? Like, you're going to get tested on all 3 of these levels, right? Like, how well can you maneuver as a team during chaos? How well do you communicate yourselves in things that are just not scriptable, right? Like, you can script the early rounds. You can script mid-round ideas, right? But you can't really script late rounds. Like, late rounds can kind of be scripted, but how they play out and how it pans out are like usually completely rare and kind of like their own little context to it, right? So for SAD, this is like a real test to see where they stand on these kind of like 3 realms of their gameplay, right? Like, how well does their strategy and map pool add up? How well does their team play add up on that roster? And then individually, can they keep up with Koala and Nismo and some of these players who are like considered some of the best at what they do?
I mean, we're talking about Ascension runner-ups. The team that we thought, well, a lot of these players they're gonna be picked up to VCT teams. It just makes sense. And then they end up back with a very similar core, and you can argue upgrade. You can argue. I would say they're right at the same level. And in an interview with Xander, he mentioned, we're not going to be the same M80. Yeah, we might have same 3 players, but with Nitro and BCJ coming in and Nitro leading, we're going to be a completely new team. I'm excited to see how that plays out. But if they get through SAD convincingly, I might get aboard the train too early. But as you mentioned, big moment for SAD. Definitely a game you need to watch. Keep your eye on Skarn. He might be the future. And I'm excited to kind of see the Nismo Qualinoob versus Skarn. At least that's how it plays out in my head. They're big aimers. And the other one...
Now, what's the other match?
TSM Glazers. Now, listen, I know what you're saying. TSM lost, Glazers lost. Why would we watch this match? Well, I'll tell you what. Number 1, it's TSM. Come on. And number 2, an ex-TSM player playing TSM. It's kind of writing itself a little bit here.
Really, the universe might actually be the best script writer or Riot, one or the other. We're not really sure.
Yeah.
Someone's at work, but I think I agree with you. I think that will be a nice spicy matchup.
Yeah, depth. We talked about it. These teams need to have depth, and week 2, hopefully, should have more practice under the belt. And I think that one's going to be good. And you know what? I didn't tell you this, Roy. I didn't put it in the script, but I am going to throw out an honorable mention. I'm going to throw out Core, Moisex, Shopify, and I know I can already hear people saying it's not going to be close. I'm just going to say this, and then we'll leave the topic be. Ziff and Zeldris, if they can get it together, that team will be deadly. That's going to be my point. And if it happens,
I can get behind that.
I'll tweet it. If the obvious happens, you're not going to hear me say anything. So, you know.
Yeah, you know what? I'll throw in the Oxygen Think game in there as well.
Dude, all the you know, the crazy thing is we could have mentioned all these games because we
actually could have. We actually low-key could have.
Cool storylines all around. Auction Think, yeah, it's gonna be a good one too. That one's on Thursday. If you're watching right now, which is Wednesday, it's tomorrow. So definitely watch those. And we're gonna end with a couple thoughts. We coined this one the big dogs, and Roy disagrees with one of the teams I have written on the list. I already know. I already know.
Me on blast
he
like
already disagrees with me. Cool. Now the big dogs: M80, Moisek, Shopify, Auction. We agree there. Now
yes, the big three.
Put TTR, and Roy feels. How do you feel, Roy? I won't put words in your mouth. How do you feel about that?
I really want to get behind TTR being part of the big dogs. I really do. I look at the roster; it looks good, stellar, 100 Thieves. Like, things make sense, right? But this roster just hasn't proven itself in the same way that the big three have. Like, Oxygen has proven themselves to be a really strong contender, right? Like, they not even that long ago, they won an event with tier 1 teams who were winning internationals. It's madness. M80, crazy roster. MX, like Moisek Shopify, right? Like, super strong roster. And then it's like, can we really honestly look at ourselves and say TTR is on the same level as them as of right now without like proving themselves? Like, you kind of need to prove yourself. I'm not saying TTR is bad, okay? Do not misunderstand me. I think the roster is really sick, period. But there's just no track record. There's nothing tangible to base it on besides like how we feel and intuition. And that's where I'm standing with this.
I guess I just stand on my feelings a bit more. You know, I'm an emotional guy, Roy.
Hey, you're valid.
So, you know what? You be the reasonable one, and I'll be the copium one. I do agree on one point. I think they have that invisible hump to get over as a team, and a close series against the Glazers obviously is going to turn anyone off from putting them in the top 4 team list. And I think that's justified. I think that's fair, and I think this week is super important for them to solidify. We're the TTR of old, and we're better. And I think if they do that this week, maybe we can start to have that conversation. But I'll box it for now. And we do have one more thing left to do, Roy. And it's kind of a big deal. It's a little bit of a big deal. We have predictions. Now, we made fun. Maybe made fun is the wrong word. We laughed along with the talent. We poked some fun. The talent mate for their predictions, but now we have to join them in the fun cause of predictions. We'll start with Wednesday. You're watching it obviously on Wednesday. Good evening, and it's prediction times for Roy and I. YFP, TWT. I'll let you go first for both games on Wednesday, and then that way I can steal some of your ideas.
I was going to say the same thing to you, but you beat me. All right, fair enough.
It's unfortunate.
I'm going to go with YFP versus TWT. So I'm going to go with YFP on that one. And actually, I do want to say that will be a super close game.
Yeah.
And then for the second game between M80 and SAD, as much as it hurts me to say, I'm going to have to go with M80. They're just a Goliath, and it's going to require a lot of wits to defeat them. Yep.
I believe it or not, maybe no one saw this coming. I agree with you completely. There is nothing to argue with on Wednesday. I do think TWT, if the vetoes go their way and they catch YFP on a map that they're not 100% drilled on, I think the maps we saw from YFP last week were maps that they're absurdly comfortable on. So if TWT can steer them away from comfort picks, could go 3, could be close. But yeah, YFP M80, no brainers. I'll start Thursday off for us. Oxygen, Thinking Men. Listen, I love everybody on Thinking Men, but Oxygen need a bounce back week. If they Auction lose this, we can start to set off little mini alarms as to what's going on here. But I don't see that happening. I think it was an off day for a majority of those players. And when you have Verno and Redux who really show up nearly every series, every map, it's really hard to beat them. So Oxygen for me is a pick there. Then
okay,
Moisek, Shopify, and Core.
Oh, come on, just say it.
Yeah, Moisek. Now, why am I hyped? Yeah, so listen, Moisek, Shopify, they look too clean. And when a team has, the ball rolling and you're playing a team that lost last week, one team has to work harder than the other, and it's not Moistek Shopify.
Yeah. You're playing a big three, man. You're going to get tested. Like, you will be tested. This is almost a final exam, first week of school. Surprise, right? Like, you're going to get tested. And I completely agree with you. I mean, it's a no-brainer. I think Oxygen takes Think. I think for that matchup, like Oxygen versus Thinking Men, that one, low-key, there's a chance. Like, I will say it's not like a clear-cut victory, but I am going to go with Oxygen for that one, and I'll also go with Moist for the second one.
All right, that's safe. Leading into Friday, right before your weekend, you get some honestly really great matches to end the week. We're looking at TTR, Winthrop, and then TSM, the Glazers. We already talked about most of these teams. TTR, Winthrop, man, I think realistically speaking, this is the moment for TTR to settle in and really show why they deserve to be in the conversation for top 4. On the other hand, perfect opportunity for Winthrop to prove why they belong in Challengers. This is one of those defining games, I think, super early on for Winthrop. The sad one, close, team of your caliber, respectable. This one, I think they're punching up a bit more. And if they can at least make it, I'm not even saying they have to win. I think TTR are going to win. But if it's close for Winthrop, I think the rest of their games, they should really scrap together a couple wins. But I'm going TTR here. TSM Glazers, man, I hate being in this situation.
That's a tough one. That is a tough one.
Oh,
that is actually a really, really hard one. You're going to do it. You're going to say it.
Glazers.
Whoa. Okay, I did not expect that. Expect that. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Wow. That is...
Your turn now.
I respect it, though. I do respect it. Okay, I do want to preface for the first match between TTR and Winthrop, though, that this is like, if Winthrop loses this, they're gonna go even further in the hole, right? Like they already lost their first game. This could be their second. Starting 0-2 in the season is not good for the mental, and like you can have fun on a team. Like, fun could be a fuel for your team for a while, but once you are not able to rack up any wins, that fun evaporates. And once that fun evaporates, that's where like the problems start arising. So you need a win. You need a win, but I'm definitely leaning Turtle Juice. I think they're a very clear overdog in my mind, at least.
I'm excited.
For the second game,
yeah.
It's such a hard one. That's a tough one. My intuition is saying TSM, but Glazers just, in my opinion, just have a much deeper map pool. And I feel like that map pool might low-key carry them, but I'm still gonna say TSM.
Okay.
But I feel like I'm gonna eat my words, though. But I'm going TSM.
Okay. Well, let's see. We'll do a recap next episode to kind of see where we're at, where our predictions right. What do you have? Let us know on our socials. But that's the end of episode 1 of Spike Down. Thank you so much for joining us. The matches are coming up soon, and maybe the town predictions. We'll see if they're better this week. Who knows? But thanks for watching. We'll see you on episode 2.
Hello, Valorant gamers, and welcome back to Valorant Challengers North America Stage 1. We're on week 2 here. We had a first good look at our teams competing, but now to see who has been stepping up and who's going to be just getting better with that pressure and overtime. My name's Sierra Dawn. I'll be your host for today, and joining me on the desk, I have yet again Uber, and I have Wyatt. Wyatt, we've gotten to see a lot of great stuff coming out from the teams, and I feel like we've learned a lot in this first week, so I'm really excited to dive into today.
For sure. We learned a lot, but there's still much left to be desired. At least that's my standing right now. It's still such early days for a lot of these teams, specifically some of the ones we're going to see today. In the first matchup with YFP, with Together We're Terrific, like yeah, we began to learn, but it is merely the first chapter. There's like TWT. I just checked again. I'm like, hold on a second. Oh yeah, they played one game. They played one match. So there's still a lot left to be desired that we're going to find out today, and as the rest of the season goes on. But a nice start for sure.
It's a good start. It was definitely an amusing week here, Uber. I want to know, for all the matches, is there anything that stood out to you, or are you still waiting for that brainworm moment coming out from our teams?
No, I think there's a ton of takeaways from week one here. Honestly, there's only one match that doesn't go to 3 maps here. And in Group A especially, it's very tight. I mean, there's no more than plus or minus 5 map differential across that entire group. We will see it open up a little bit more, but a lot of the matches we got were really very competitive, right? It made it a little bit harder to know just how good Moistic Shopify and maybe Oxygen are. They kept a very close game going. And again, I was very, excited to see, like, Together We Are Terrific take on Core and sort of see how these teams are shaping up early on. I'd say TSM as an outlier for me are a team that look a little scattered. They're going to need a bit more time after coming together pretty quickly here. That was a match where they gave us a decent showing on Lotus there against M80, but really fell apart. And a lot of teams are struggling on Icebox here as well. As we get towards the later half of these series, we had a lot of one-sided results on that map, especially.
And you're talking about TSM, but even there was quite a few teams that had some mixed pieces coming into the season. So this week one was definitely a lot of learning and I think a lot of adjusting for the team. So as the weeks go on, I'm not putting 100% too much stock in the week one for some of the teams, but I will be intrigued going on to this week how things are going to be stacking up. And looking at our standings, of course, we want to see who is leading the charge. We are split up into 2 groups here. And when we're looking at our group standings, like I said, it's the first week. There's still so much more that can be changing here.
I'm going to overreact. I'm ready to overreact right now. Actually, there's not even really a good overreaction because everything we kind of expected to happen kind of happened. Am I often saying that? Or maybe I'm just thinking too much about, I guess, M80 win, sure, Turtle Troop win. Though a lot of close games as well, to be fair. Moist Shopify Oxygen, I think Oxygen were definitely the favorites coming in. Yeah. So that was a little bit of an upset. Maybe I could overreact and, put Moist Shopify as the new favorite, the team to beat. But I don't know. Not a lot of good overreactions.
Well, it's
still early days.
We only had the off-season data for Moist and Oxygen, right? And we kind of had to read the tea leaves a little bit based on a lot of like the off-season events, like the Ludwig vs. Tarek event, the Sean Gez event. These 2 teams know each other quite well. I think had a real good feel for each other straight away. And those are the hardest matches to call. Really back and forth, very lively a match in general. I thought Lotus again was really emblematic of these 2 teams and their sort of separate approaches. I think Dapper maybe struggles to get into gear at points across the course of that series. So I mean, we're talking about a veteran player who, and the biggest topic of discussion for us here was how quickly these veterans can fit into new protocols and new structures in teams because they've just got that experience. So we'll probably see that continue to play out this week. And I'm pretty bullish on both those teams. I think me and Wyatt both have the Glazers beating out TSM. I think we're still a little sussy about this TSM team. They're not convincing me remotely yet.
No, it did look like you copied my homework on those Preds when I saw it. I'm like, hold on, we didn't collaborate. We didn't discuss it, but yeah, we went with every single pick being the same, which is kind of wild.
There's that mad synergy off the rip.
I know, for real.
I'm the odd one out here. I'm pretty hyped on this TSM team. Unfortunately, won't get to see them today. That's for later in the week. Taking a look at the schedule. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We're not seeing them today either. All right, let's focus up on the matches we will see today. YFP, TWT, and later on is Sad going up against M80. Make sure to be peeping the schedule. Follow up on your favorite teams. And hey, the 3 of us, we can beef come our final 3rd day when TSM do take on the Glazers. All right, I think that'll we can fight then.
Sure. All right, yeah, we'll table it for now. Again, yeah, we are looking again at this like Together We Are Terrific team. There's like a ton to talk about there. With all of our matches here. Winthrop are an interesting one to me. They made that series against Sad Esports a lot more convincing, but it was absolutely chaos. And when we went to Ascent, we feel like we really just like reverted back to a very tentative and unconvincing structure for that Winthrop team. So looking to see their map pool continue to develop a little bit more, because again, with so many matches go to all 3 maps, you need that depth if you want to close out a competitive series like that. I felt bad because they worked really hard for it. Winthrop couldn't convert.
Hey, but next week, they definitely worked hard, and it's definitely excited to see them here. But I'm intrigued with where they can level up going into this week. But focusing on our first match of the day, YFP going up against TWT. And let's talk about this YFT team first, looking across the board, because this is a team that there is definitely, Wyatt, some really, really strong pieces. Of course, they were also another one of those teams that fell victim to the, oh shoot, we got to bring a different player in, we got to restructure a little bit, that being Thief brought in. But we definitely got to see some good stuff with their win over Thinking Men.
Yeah, Thief was a fortunate replacement to bring in after Moose had departed from this team post-qualifying. He did. And there are some other very talented players here too. Bones showed that off last season. At this point, has played every agent. I mean, his VLR profile, it looks like, you know, is it Bones or is it Forsaken? They have the exact same agent pool that like played every agent in the game. And you're playing Smokes now for this YFP iteration. And for me, the standout and player that I'm looking to is Penny on the Revenge Tour. Back on Duelist, the role that he made a name with years ago with version 1 when that team made it to Reykjavik. And since then, Penny has just been, you know, trying to find his place again in the scene. He's always been a great player, but has never had a great opportunity to really show it. Last season, you know, he was picking up flex roles mostly for G2, and so I'm looking to him because to be the guy with a resurgence.
100%. And it was something too when you're talking about that role change into the Duelist. That was the focus that Penny had going into this year, pulling up an old tweet and, you know, that looking for team season coming out from Penny here. It was something that was discussed. Like, looking back at last year, no excuses. I'm not looking for that. I don't want any excuses. Wants to play, he wants to go as the Duelist. So when you're looking at the Revenge arc, Uber, it's something too that he was very much so recognized. And I'm excited to see that he does get to step into this role with his preferred role here.
Yeah, I think it's really important, especially given that Challengers is a crucial stage to sort of prove yourself that you deserve to step from that tier 2 into that tier 1. And like we've seen this a number of times as well in Valorant, that players end up sort of filling roles that maybe, you know, don't really suit them or don't at least allow for that level of skill expression. The fact is, you have such a large pool of players here in Challengers, and standing out is hard to do. You want to stand out, of course, by helping your team find success. But if you're not put in a position to succeed, it can be very hard to distinguish yourself from every other controller, initiator, you know, player. So, like, I was really impressed with Penny, right? This is another team that was making a lot of use of Reyna and Icebox, which I think is a great opportunity for Penny to do his thing. And I'm pretty convinced that, yeah, he deserves to be in that kind of role. It just so happens that the veteran players end up having fairly deep agent pools and sort of end up as facilitators on some teams. You know, Mummy's a good example of that, right? Someone who was a straight up duelist back in the days and has transitioned more into a facilitator supporting role, even though he still has some great moments of his own. So it feels like a natural progression of a veteran Valorant player, but you don't have to be pigeonholed into that. You don't have to go out to pasture and play Smokes, you know, when your time is up, so to speak.
And you said something in that I thought was interesting, is like, how can you kind of stand out here? And I think already with being back mainly on this Duelist, Penny did stand out here in the first week here, Wyatt. That was player of the week here when we're looking at all the players here in Challengers. And honestly, he did a great job looking at a couple of the stats. Again, I am thoroughly impressed with just the general performance, but the Reyna on Icebox was a little chef's kiss.
Yeah, on that Icebox, he was going crazy, just, you know, doing the standard Reyna thing, peeking, getting a kill, and vanishing. And he was doing it over and over and over. And Reyna, a super confidence-based agent, of course. This move to go back to Duelist, what he was saying about switching back to Duelist is pure confidence to me, and I like that, because I think it can also shake your confidence as a player when you are a star duelist on a big team like version 1, like he was, and then kind of slipping down the cracks of the scene, not getting as much respect as he did at a time as a duelist, feeling like he needs to maybe play a different role, trying different things out, different agents out, and it's not bringing him the success. And then he said, like, no, screw that, I'm going back to what I was like, what made me great. And that he, you know, maybe fell away from a bit, maybe lost a little bit of that confidence. And he played with confidence for sure. And I think that this notion of him going back to duelist, even though there's 1,000,001 duelists out there to prove himself again. Like that speaks to where his mentality is at for me.
And a good trust from the team too, because Physics was talking about the fact that, hey, they did the rain on Icebox because, yeah, Penny's a great player. He can take more like one-on-one duels, can have that aggression. So the team definitely seems to be kind of boding well in that sort of sense. So be nice to see that going on forward. But talking on the other end here, TWT, when we're talking about, hey, all the teams that had the changed players, this is the team that definitely kind of sticks out to me the most to start things off. And looking at week one, they didn't really have a lot of time to be preparing here, Uber, and the players even tweeting a little bit about, hey, some of that uncomfiness going into that first week.
Yeah, look, I mean, we observed Will go up against a pretty nasty opponent in Zeldris. Zeldris is about one of the most confident players that I've seen at this level. And, you know, on Breeze, it was pretty hard to match his impact. Couple good rounds, got the operator there. But, yeah, I can see the discomfort there. But, God, I feel like people talk about this so much, but there's a huge amount to do with how your duelist is sort of set up and how much you feel like you can get away with and how much you can break protocol, you know, and mix things up on the dime without having to, you know, relay every single thing back to the rest of your team. I think, like, you know, Mummy makes a great point here. They just haven't had much time, and roster mania gets a little bit hectic here at tier 2. I think, like, being able to find Will and bring him into the fold here is going to be, you know, a huge pickup for this team. And again, like, you know, there will be opportunities for Will to demonstrate that level of ability. I think there are some maps where, frankly, like a lot of the, you know, initiator players on TWT just really shone. And yeah, I really enjoyed what we saw, you know, from them, especially on Breeze. Mummy as well as an individual, like, really stood out to me on a lot of these anchor plays. So the team's in a fine spot. They had a pretty stiff opposition, you know, against Core, especially like T-Dog just ripping heads off every pistol round with his Sheriff. Like, that is something you just can't account for. So they did a very good job sort of bouncing back from that. And I think their macro play on Breeze again was really good. So they have the structure, Sierra. It's really about, yeah, getting Will in a position to succeed.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned, though, also, we were speaking about that with the initiators for the team popping off. Neptune having a really good game, too. Kempeki had a great map 3. That is a hallmark of Will is on your team. Back on 100 Thieves during their breakout year in 2023, when Will was on the roster and they had brought in Derek and Austin and was playing KO, Will was never really the guy shining on that team. And, you know, that is sometimes a problem if your duelist is not fragging out. But if there's one thing Will would always do, it was his job. He was such a selfless and is such a selfless duelist that it allows your initiators that are coming in to trade off you to have the space that they need to succeed behind him. And I think that he's one of the primary reasons why those guys were looking so good in those games too. And then if he can, you know, what we saw with that 100 Thieves team back then is when he does kick it into high gear, when he's also going off and he's doing his job perfectly and creating that space for everybody, that's when the team is really going to flourish on their attack sides especially.
Yeah, look, and very quickly on that note, like, there are 2 maps where Will is just -4 on, you know, first kill, first death. Two separate maps where that happens, and that gets in your head as a duelist. You start worrying about being a liability. You start being concerned about taking those same risks, and you can sometimes wiggle yourself into like an uncomfortable position where you're trade bait for your initiators, which is fine. But we see the most successful teams here are able to open up opportunities for themselves when not immediately, you know, backed up by, you know, like good initiator utilities. So it's a confidence thing. It's not a mechanics issue for Will. You know, he'll need more time, I think, just to simmer a bit.
Yeah, being brought onto the team like the same day before because of all the roster mania happening is definitely not really set up for success. So hopefully going into this week, we can just be able to see a little bit of Will flourishing there. But I wanted to go back to someone else that we talked about here, Uber, which was Mame, because Mame was someone that we got to see a lot of in Challengers last year. First off with Turtle Troop and then going over to FaZe. Now we get to see him on Together We Are Terrific, more so now in the Sentinel role.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the progression of a veteran player. Like, Mummy is about as veteran as you get. I mean, he was kind of a player that sort of popularized the Omen operator role. Again, you know, popularized might be pushing a little bit, but definitely sort of pushed in that direction here and was very effective and very TENS-esque in terms of how he was able to make some corrections in positioning very quickly with that TP. Now, he's really getting involved in a lot of these like great defensive rounds. And what Together We Are Terrific have been liking to do is not play retakes so much as interrupt and execute as it's happening. Bree's a great example of this, playing off flashes behind their own sort of Viper wall, which often gets set up for retake, pushing into it and actually just making use of the pop flash to find, you know, multi-kills. Mummy, really, really good there. And then on the attacking side, again, they're up halls, they're making use of the Astra smoke, they're leaving a player behind, they're always getting someone up that fourth lane of the map here. So Mummy's making some, you know, great calls, assuming he's part of that particular architecture. Again, he hasn't missed a beat, honestly.
I have to say too, Wyatt, I think my impressions off of what I've gotten to see from TWT in the first week is, all things aside, I actually thought the coordination, my opinion anyways, is I actually thought the coordination that they had, given how little time they got to really hammer things out, was pretty good. I think it was a good sign for things going forward.
I agree. I do think they had some pretty natural synergy chemistry where when they were in, especially like post-play situations, they were playing off of each other well. I think what they were lacking, which is a clear indicator of no time, is, especially on the defensive side, their setups were just not great because it just didn't seem like they had ironed them out or really had that many. There was not a lot of variation, and some of the ones that they did have were just not, you know, the things were not adding up as they should have in terms of where pieces of utility were, what angles people were watching. And those are clear indicators of the lack of time that hopefully, you know, in this past week, they've been able to iron some of that stuff out so much as you can in a week's time. But in that game, yeah, Mummy for me he was like the glue guy, kind of holding things together on a lot of the defensive rounds in particular.
Well, I'm assuming then with this team, what we're going to see going forward is each best of three, them getting stronger and stronger. And looking ahead at the series, time to talk about the map picks and bans that we'll see ahead of this series. And it's quite interesting because going into this, we're learning a lot about a lot of the teams. Of course, TWT here, Uber, one of those teams that we didn't get to see in the qualifiers since they had the spot. So looking at this map pool, Ascent to start, I don't even know where to start when we look at TWT.
Oh, I mean, yeah, this is a really interesting map pool, I think, how it comes out. So you see TWT, like you're avoiding Icebox and Lotus. They had Breeze picked against them last week, and they looked really good. YFP also are banning it. They got banned in their matchup against Thinking Men, rather. So, look, I'm not too shocked to see this map pool. I think, obviously, Ascent, while it can provide some, set up some play patterns that are a little on the staler side, it's also a great chance to just assess where a team is at fundamentally, because this is where you normally go first. When you come together as a roster, you have a lot of sort of protocols that exist from prior teams you sort of bring in here, and you can usually apply them pretty much straight away. If we get to split, I kind of hope we get to split. I think this is, I think Roy was talking about it on a Spike Drop, says it's going to be a pretty close one. That is what is really going to test these teams. That's really going to reveal if there is any holes in their setups here. So I think it's a great map pool to sort of see these two run out on.
And I think good, too, when we're looking at the teams that are coming together, good Wyatt to kind of be poking holes and things right away to try and figure out where exactly they're standing, because a lot of it's going to be the growth throughout this split. Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see that with these three maps, going back to the first thing you said, Sierra, about learning. It's time to learn, because these are three maps that neither team played last week. And we did see YFP play some of these maps on the qualifiers, but they have a different roster now. And, TWT, they just literally have not played these maps at all. So I'm ready to get educated and see what they have to offer here. Especially Ascent first up. Interestingly, TWT, they banned that last week, and now they picked it. So
I think YFP also banned Sunset, right? So both of these teams playing on, maps they banned last week, they were the second bans, right? So normally you're just sculpting the map pool to try and get, a really favorable setup here. But we don't have data on them, which is kind of exciting. So curious to see how things have unfolded and see what 1 week of practice has yielded for these two. Yeah, that'll be the biggest thing, especially when we're looking at a team like TWT, where things like
they already seemed to be meshing and they were not given that success. So I'm looking at that. I'm looking to see how Will is doing this time around, Wyatt, and just kind of learning a little bit more. Because, yeah, the fact that we don't have any data about TWT on these maps, there's learning, as you said, learning.
Yeah, it's time to get educated by Mame and friends and Pancakes, who I believe he is IGLing for that squad. So that's a tough task in front of him to IGL for the new team, but did a solid job last week, so we'll see what he can offer on some new locations.
That'll be good. That'll be exciting. And when you're looking at over the opposing end here with Physics 2 IGL for YFP, last week wasn't necessarily the happiest with his calling, but was able to sit down and chat with the team, kind of figure things out. So I want to see that difference going into this week. And we're not going to have to wait too much longer. Agent's ready. Agent Select is ready. I'm too excited to get into things, guys.
We're learning. Sierra, we're learning. I mean, the pursuit of knowledge is just exhilarating.
Our Agent Select is ready, guys. Let's get into our first map. I'll see you two later.
Sierra going to return from her pilgrimage away, just being so much more knowledgeable, as I hope we all are coming out of this one here. We have the Cypher for Mummy. Again, that's really the only sort of key variation here between these two lineups. So very much straightforward here on Ascent. Thief we saw on that Killjoy last week, looking pretty solid in general. Penny, what can you deliver for us here? I'm definitely looking at the the offensive side here on that Jet. Just how many opportunities can you open up here? Because much of this composition, much of the plans and strategy wired are pretty much wired into these players at this point.
The Viper pick from TWT is very interesting, opting for just one initiator, no Sova on Ascent. That is very rare, very, very rare. And of course, YFP opting for that default composition that is default for a reason. We just saw in the Madrid finals, both teams were running this comp on Ascent because, hey, listen, it's just the best one. You can throw other things in the mix, try and throw a team off. That's cool, but when it comes down to brass tacks, you're getting your KO, your Sova, your Omen, your KJ, and your Jet. It is tried and true. It is beyond well tested. We know what this composition does on this map, and we know the consistency that it brings.
Yeah, I mean, great point. You sort of no Sova for TWT. That also means that sometimes like these odd early round set plays on defense, the crunch plays that involve Odins, it's much harder, obviously, to get that level of information. I feel like, God, in recent times, one of the first teams sort of rolling out this Viper comp, and there are a couple that have been trying it, was Loud. They were using this Viper wall, both in A and B main, respectively, at such angles where you actually have to cross it twice. So very likely that you're vulnerable as you sort of try and hit the site. And if defenders want to play forward or play a little bit more assertively, you can really take advantage of that here. So big difference between these two. I mean, a big deviation from the script, something that honestly did not even stand out to me initially here. And it's something we're going to be watching very closely. Will and Penny, what do we see between these two and how these Jets start to dictate the pace on this map? It's exactly the kind of start we're looking for from both these sides. I also, Wyatt, as we were talking about it, I think Bones had a fantastic showing in YFP's previous game.
Yeah.
Again, really proactive play, especially on some maps where we're sort of seeing teams go away from having the, duelist entirely, right? Some teams are picking up the deadlock and stuff like that. We see some teams trying to push, the Omen is almost like an off duelist on Icebox, for example. So Bones seems to fit that bill pretty well. Let's see what he can produce for us now as our pistol looms.
Absolutely. TWT looks like they're just going to be gearing up here for perhaps a bit of mid pressure into a B split. I am still quite stuck on this comp though, Mitch, because whenever we see Viper on Ascent, you still have two initiators. Like you mentioned, Loud playing it, PaperX playing it. Both teams with Vipers on this map, both teams with two initiators. They sacrifice the Sentinel.
Yeah.
And typically the Sentinel's a KJ, but they have the Cypher. That Cypher's going to he's going to be working overtime on the reconnaissance mission to get info for this team.
Yeah, Mummy on the cams, big time. Viper wall here, of course. Allowing together, we are terrific to either fight market and then fight into the rest of the site here. We'll have no resistance on B early though. We'll be inching away forward.
Down.
Waiting for that wall to drop to clear close here in B main. The rest of the team going to gather up, go for this execute. Gonna be easy to take the site, just the turret to worry about. Try and get that door closed when Will can.
Penny here, spamming on through it. Decent amount of damage here taken on the attackers. Pancakes and Will a little low. Neptune planting back in the corner of that site here. You'll see there's look at that presence in towards B main. Mummy is going to be a bit of an issue here. Will wait for the push. 4 up for YFP here, and they have to navigate this Viper wall. Also, that nasty little poison orb there on stairs. That is going to be frustrating to try and play through. Paranoid towards the back of the site there. It's going to be a trade. Thief falls though. Mummy again, very, very embedded back towards B main, and Jonah has a sense of it here, Wyatt, but getting him out of this position, yeah, he just doesn't really have the time to do it. Now the 3 versus 1 Jonah, he is in deep trouble. Mummy can just hold this angle. He's been so tentative, so hard to dig out of that spot.
Lovely play from Mame. I'm telling you, this guy is the glue of this team. He won that round for them. Of course, you know, we get the site essentially for free. That's nice, but he places that deep trip, gets that cheeky first pick, retreats into B main, and it's the patience from there. It's not over peaking. He's not trying to take that duel against Jonah. He's just biding his time and has essentially taken Jonah out of the game because he's just stood there waiting for the repeat. That was so well played. The patience on display there was perfect.
This A Viper wall sometimes can force defenders prematurely into a retake scenario because there's no help from Tree, and Heaven is an awkward spot to play from. Is that 0 point? Will now suddenly inch his way up there. You can see. Yeah, there it is. They get lit to some degree by YFP now with the 2-player stack towards Tree. No action yet on Catwalk, and again, real slow play. Look at Mummy. He's so slow. Back towards spawn here. Expecting a push up from info from Thief, but Thief a little more disciplined.
Thief was holding B main for a while, which is allowed for this stack. Could be dangerous for TWT.
Neptune down early though. Will just going to bully his way straight on him, but loses out to the classic of Jonah. That's dangerous. Pancakes.
Last player
the smoke obscuring some degree of vision as Penny's able to double down, and it is up to Mummy now, who finally makes his way out of spawn towards Tree, but that door coming down. He has to break it open. Doesn't realize there's a player up behind him though on grass. And he's not going to get away with this. Nice little thrifty from YFP and a very awkward hit there on A.
It really just came down to Thief early walking into B main. And of course, on an eco round, you're going to be so willing to just throw all the chips in on a site, right? So with that info of, well, they're not B main. All right, let's just go stack A. And they walk right into the stack. It's really just that simple. And then Penny, who you mentioned before, back on the duelist role, comes up big immediately. 2 sheriff headshots to lock the round in as a win.
Tough to bounce back from this one. Obviously, the economy extremely awkward now for the attackers. 0 point here. This is, again, placed to sort of catch a really fast hit, but Pancakes is going to be there. It's traded out. No assistance, no chance to sort of trade any further off that kill for the attackers now. They'll be forced back.
You'll take that 1-for-1. Bones slipping into a cheeky little position, going to reveal himself, of course. Can get out of here if he needs to, and he'll be able to just shift walk around that smoke. Oh, Will, lovely shot as well. Back in the scene.
Don't know who else to be hiding in wait in wine there. Not unheard of for a multi-stack. Jonah going to make this off the wall here. Wait for contact through main. Physic does see it on there. It's the swing. Nicely done. Spike loose. Jonah here going to reconfirm just the number of players there. Spots one, but knows Kenpeki is close by. They're trying to swing this door. Elsewhere, Mummy gets brought down in mid. There's going to be a lot of lurking between Thief and Mummy. Again, the attackers. The 2 versus 1 as Kenpeki's able to spray through. It's just Thief being blocked off here as the tree door will come down.
30 seconds left.
YFP overfacing so much, and it's left Thief in a 1v2, mollied off. The spike is going to be planted.
Spike planted. Back
gen. So long as TWT can just set up together, this should be an easy win. Both players recovered rifles.
1 enemy remaining.
Oh my goodness. Okay, that's big. Just
high-low didn't work.
Just 10 points of health. Yeah, maybe the gen just sort of breaks up the swing. Thief, though, doesn't know where Will is playing from here. So eventually, together we are terrific. Able to bring things back. It was awkward, though. They managed to sort of defeat the wine stack. That beautiful shot there to open it up. But again, very back and forth here early. This will be a close one.
Yeah, Bones revealed his position early in wine, right? Trying to go for that spray kill on the orb. And it's not that that's a terrible idea, but after that, forced to retreat. But it's really the play after on the A site, just overconfident to face with better guns, but the rifle recovered even the playing field. We're already on the back-to-back Thrifties. It was just a very, very chaotic round there on the A site.
Okay, here's that Odin. Stand-up play here from the B side, and you can see it really dissuades TWT to move away from that one here. Again, that same ball thrown down on A, and as a result, YFP no one sort of anchoring that A site here. Together we are terrific. Will now approach.
Look to see what Mame opts to do in this situation as well. Was going to be on that late lurk, trying to work through mid, apply a little pressure B main while the rest of the team is going to go for this hit. Often that backstab from the Sentinel is the crux of a round win when the attacking side goes for an A plant.
Bones here wants to imply a potential cross to wine. You see the pings are there for Together We Are Terrific, so at least it's going to be maybe some neutral to clear that out. And they know where the Omen is. It looks straight at the smoke. He goes. Bones gets one. It's going to have to be satisfied with just the 1-for-1. Physic trying to spam down.
Standing ahead.
Cops a glancing hit here. We'll just make sure the recon dart in case a fast hit follows it, but no. Together We Are Terrific down 33 seconds. They're pulled out.
Mummy hasn't really been able to get any significant space, so this is going to be tough for TWT to get in B quick. If they opt to do that, no, they are going to go for the A re-hit. A really nice call there. They're going to be able to get this site relatively for free, so long as they can survive a potential peek here from Penny. Going to swing with his teammates as well. Flash coming in.
Well affected by that. Updraft here. Jonah now playing close to Jen. A little bit of damage there from the molly, but all of a sudden, TWT fall to pieces. And once again, Mummy, very much a spectator in this round. Wyatt struggling to keep tabs on Thief, let alone get significant control of the map, either B main or mid.
Yeah, unable to find a moment to apply pressure, and partly due to that, YFP were easily able to rotate back to A and go for that very swift pre-take, which was a great decision, by the way. Penny just sat up in heaven, waiting, and then as soon as Jonah arrived and was able to toss that little flash, they all just jumped down together. Really good decision. Loved the decisiveness of it.
Mind games on both sides of the map here. Bones trying to do everything he can just to sort of keep TWT guessing. There's Viper wall here. First time we've seen this one cut across mid. It'll deny the operator angle. Penny's forced to play back here from CT. Now we have significant map control through mid, Wyatt.
A lot of pressure now on YFP to try and clear this back out if they can. At least, watch this area, which is what Jonah is going to do. And in the meantime, a bit of passive control over on the A side from Campeki in main, which is what they're going to use, it looks like, to set up for this A hit.
The player embedded there real deep. Will be Pancakes waiting for an opportunity to make use of the Sheriff, and Mummy also joining. Again, they have no info really about market here. I'll break the door down.
Yeah, just trying to make it seem like it's going to be a B split.
The A play is slow, and I think that 0 point might have caught both TWT players in cubby here. So again, YFP, they're definitely spending some time guessing. They don't really know where this hit is going to be. But finally, Pancakes decides to push into CT, gets caught off that angle there. Mummy will be there. Maybe they don't expect two players to be sat there for so long. Awkward for Will there. Finally got his way up in their heaven, but it goes against him. And well, that's a spike drop down. This is very, very uncomfortable for TWT. It's slow play, and they're getting very little information here with how much of the map that has been given up.
It's moments like that from Thief that had people in the offseason saying, wait, why did Moist, they got rid of him? Why did they drop this guy? As he just picks off 3. Campeki off. He was only just a moment speedier on that swing. Will had a great distraction with that dash on Heaven to get a little crunch on Thief, but the adjustments there were phenomenal. I think TWT had a window where they could have had a nice A exec off Mummy, applying that B pressure, breaking the door, making it seem like there could have been a B split coming, but they missed the window.
That's wild. He gets to kill Heaven, then out of tree, then in A main. Ridiculous. Physic here just doing the thing. Mummy will remain here, maybe look for a timing to sneak in, but with two players that may actually delve further into B main from YFP, that could be tricky. We have mid control to some degree, but no push up into market here.
You can see Penny just trying to lock down A main with that operator. Some valuable information, though. That Viper wall does cause some worries, right? Because they could have crossed into the cubby. So a little bit more of an anxious position to hold when that wall eventually does come up. Flash is a bit of a deterrent.
Okay, Mummy spotted here, so they know once more the Viper is really persistently lurking that B side of the map. Will definitely get hit by the flash, but once more, we're into market, this time with an extra player. No push into CT, but it's not really being covered right now. We're down to 35 seconds left. They are running out of time. Here's the Al drone. Mummy again having to skirt away from that one quickly. And the lurking Viper here making the way towards A, but how can you sell this? Not easily, apparently.
They've got to hit the gas getting into backside here. They need to find both these kills and get the lockdown within the next 4 seconds, which it looks like they're going to be able to do. Well done from TWT. Just stomping together into the backside as a unit.
We heard the neural theft go up there for Mummy. Plenty of information as YFP have to make all their way entirely through CT here. Trying to spot a close player with that 0 point. Will going to get caught out. The flash is good. Pancakes with a one-way to try and play around this, and we'll be seeing some smokes here over towards Boathouse. Paranoia as well. He's going to affect Neptune for the time being, but Mummy's playing a bit further forward. One towards Speedway, and it's going to be a trade. Somehow Jonah finds that kill on Pancakes, and he gets brought down in response. Neptune with the Odin, and it's enough for that range. And that's a huge take back for TWT. Again, a slow round. This time at least they can convert.
Nicely done playing off of that positional advantage they got taking mid. That seems to be the aspect of the game where they're going to find some success here. They're actually going to take a pause, a timeout rather, just off the back of winning that round. The economy is still quite good for YFP. They're going to be buying up into this. I do kind of wonder what I wonder why they took this pause, what they're taking time to discuss. I mean, it seems like they've found I'm not going to say the one solution of how to keep racking up rounds, but I'm liking what they've been doing in mid on these past couple. I think on this last one in particular, they rectified the mistake of the previous round where they got mid control and they were proactive off of it. On the last one, they got that mid control, but were way too slow to make a decision. So I like where they're taking this. I really I'd love to know what they're talking about. Yeah. Honestly, I don't know.
There might be a question of like whether they want to play up tempo here and have like a fairly quick post plant scenario with a Viper Spit, for example, if they can get there. They probably feel, honestly, they're probably discussing like, we can't really fast play in towards B here against these Odin. It just seems to dismantle us every time. We have that mid-control wall threat up here. This is going to try and thwart Penny, who, of course, still incredibly good on a rifle.
Typically, you're relying on that Sova to take mid-control, right? Like a close recon or droning up mid, but this wall is really doing the job for them. They're able to get right up to where that alarm bot would typically be and break it, just as they just did then.
Big info. Penny spotted out there by the 0 point. Again, this is much more up tempo, but together we are terrific. Both plays here at A for YFP actually going to give up a lot of this space. And it looks like Cubby is where we're headed next. That's cleared by Molly. Will out in front with the knives here. I was expecting a double face maybe through tree, but instead it's a stack of 3 in the mid.
They're going to slow things down here, which is an appropriate reaction when you've got that pick so early into the round. Don't need to overplay their hand, and they're going to go for this 1-4 hit, which they had done a couple times previously. And on the last couple times, we saw Mame not really able to find success on that mid lurk. So him catching a proper timing here will be critical.
What is he going to see? It feels like YFP really playing around that lurk in general. Will, okay, just walks up. Bones going to be able to bring him down. 0 point effect on the Omen here in hell, but Bones still able to land the shot. And now, again, the wheels start to fall off the cart here for TWT. The bomb, the spike rather, has dropped inside A. Mummy does get that timing at the very least, but you can't convert off this.
Pancakes has the TP. He's going to be able to pick up the spike, and they're going to just have to run it into B. Still, though, they are quite far away with 17 seconds, and they might get cut off at the pass by Bones.
Mummy's trying to play embedded here at the B side. Bones. Oh, the timing is good. You've got to double back for the spike. You just don't have any time. Mummy, all he can do now is set his feet over at the A site. 3 seconds left. We might just get there as Kopecky awkwardly realizes that there ain't enough time to get it done. Again, the slow pace of play from Together We Are Terrific is their undoing.
It did seem like that was an... okay, I was going to say when they took the timeout, I was wondering if there was a possibility where they were going to try to go for one of the execs where you omen TP to get the spike and then they plant and then maybe the Viper's Pit, something like that. I think they may have gone into the round intending on doing that, but then felt they could just win straight up because they got that mid pick, but then tried to ad-lib back to it anyway, but they were too far away. Very awkward, but I respect the effort on the Omen plant play. It is pretty funny. And it works. It does work sometimes, and it's cool when it does.
Well, I said that split would be what exposed either of these teams for, lack of confidence maybe, or less than sort of watertight protocols. We're already seeing that here on the attacking side for TWT. Respectable 3 rounds, good to take here. Finally, Thief really varies the tempo. Able to peek out there and claim Mummy. There is an extra player there at Belong, but no chance for Neptune to trade.
And what do you do now for these TWT players? Neptune is miles away, setting up for, I was going to think maybe he'll set up for a flash, but he has no utility, and they have just this one initiator remaining, so they're just going to have to try and dry face in, and it works. Will gets a great entry.
It's awkward. Will has the tailwind. I think they were hoping to break crosshair placement there, but we did see space given up by Jonah. Bones just repositioned closer to Jenny. Oh, that is sharp.
Spike down A.
Spike goes loose, but it's going to be traded. Door comes down now. Physic with the Odin here from Heaven, and Thief obviously always on a very different part of the map. It'll be a very slow wrap around here through Gelato for that YFP Killjoy.
Will is all alone, and I'm worried that may end up being the TWT undoing in what should be a very winnable round.
Here we have a dark cover here towards A main. It's going to be slower going for Thief. Okay, get some info for that Odin spam here. 0 point though. Well timed. Thief just eating randomly a bunch of damage here, and Will has the timing. There's really not much that YFP can do here, but Thief has other plans. 1 versus 2 at 30 HP is just a little unreasonable. TWT get away with it this time around, right? Again, another messy hit towards that A site. And really varying up the pace a whole lot.
Yeah, well done from Will to find that timing. There's a scary world there where if YFP get the first and he's not in a position to trade, he ends up having to run over as fast as he can, but he makes sure that potential unfortunate situation doesn't become any kind of reality. Still, this YFP bank has been full this entire time. This is the first round they're actually going to be under threat of getting eco'd. Or put on an eco, rather.
Exactly. YFP congregating around mid tier. I think they're conditioned by that A wall. This time, though, without Viper wall, TWT want to make their way in towards main here. This could be a quick one. Market smoked out, going to take contact here. The flash comes in, but Neptune is just a little better. Now with Jonah falling, they might want to pick up the pace. Paranoia whistles past, but no one on TWT affected, and Mummy will embed himself here at Logs. The rattiest positions only for this guy. Into the back of Boathouse goes Bones, but Neptune is there with the timing. Aldrone going to yield very little information, but Penny still able to win out as Will tries to catch them. And here's that Viper's Pit. Fast play towards B, Viper's Pit in the post plant.
Yeah, oh wow, Mummy actually getting caught out. Had a flash thrown for him by Neptune, a solid attempt. Now it's just about dealing with this pit. They're trying to use the Hunter's Fury to clear it out, but no one can actually scale off of this Hunter's Fury.
They're playing outside of Null Command, with Physic at least being able to make use of that there, but they get so little. Viper's Pit's still an issue. YFP starting to realize that this is going to be harder and harder to reclaim, as Penny just skirts around the pit. There's a bunch of players grouped up here towards CT. Might be a trade opportunity. No, Kempeki is a little better, and this is disastrous for YFP. TWT figure it out this time around. Get themselves their fifth.
It was far more important that those YFP players saved their guns than took some out of the hands of TWT. I would have liked to have seen them just run away there. I mean, imagine they have 2 more rifles in this round, right? They could actually get a reasonable enough buy to fight for this one. And that ends up not being the case. That was another, it was a good hit from TWT, but frankly, I think the defensive play from YFP was pretty haphazard there. That TP from Bones, when you're going to be all alone backside, that is beyond risky, right? I mean, if he comes up and gets a couple kills, massive play, but it's just a low percentage chance when you're the only guy left on the side.
This is so readable. They see Penny running full speed out of cubby with knives out here. Very obvious to TWT what the plan is, and they activate in towards B main in response. That is dirty. Kempeki waiting for that one here. Crosshair placement broken. Flash is good as well, and Bones is ripped to shreds. Now YFP really have to rely on the jet knives to inflict some economic damage here. And it's all up to Penny.
Here.
No weapon to save. I want to say no real hope of winning this, though I certainly will not count out Penny. I've seen him make magic happen on the Duelists over his long tenure in Valorant in many years, but he's going to get shut down straight away. And look, at this point, 6 rounds, Ascent attack, that's more than enough. 5 was more than enough. At this point, they're coasting. I mean, any more on top of this is gluttony.
They are getting, though, like TWT that is getting a lot of good info, but often actually just winning trades out at the start of the round. Thief, this latest variation in pace from his sort of Killjoy that wants to go up and get info. Often if I was getting caught out in B main. This play from Bones is reasonable. Konpeki playing from a corner, you just don't really check, right? So hard to play around that.
It looks like they're going to try to go for this. Oh, wow. Immediate Odin spam takes down Mummy. That's very unfortunate for him. They go for this fast mid play again where they flash over top, try and scale off the wall. Wow, they're actually going to push it into spawn to try and catch Jonah. This is a wild attempt.
Smoke placement forces the wider angle, though. Here comes Bones to the rescue. Beautiful stuff. Flashes from both the Omen and the KO. Set that up. Penny eventually makes his way around on the ramp here, and it leaves Konpeki all alone. This time it's him in that 1 versus 4 with the spike a heck of a long way away. Economy, though, burgeoning here for TWT. They can afford to take some licks in this round. Konpeki wants to force some guns out of some cold, dead hands.
TWT, they went for the jackpot there of just, we lost Mummy immediatly. All right, well, let's just send it into their spawn and try to catch them out. And I mean, I feel like I keep saying I respect it. Listen, I respect the idea and the effort there. There was almost a timing where they could have caught Jonah, maybe made that happen. But it ends up getting shut down, as does Konpeki in the end. Still, though, we're in a situation where YFP, they need every single round they can get. This last round means a lot more to them than it does to TWT. 6 on Ascent attack, you're set.
There's so much contacting these sites from TWT with this Sovilus composition. It puts a lot of pressure on Will, honestly, after we had this whole discussion about whether or not Will was fitting in yet, feeling comfortable yet. Now he has to generate a lot of this action early on in the round. And I guess Mummy trying to play for overextensions on the B side, but at times it seemed really messy for TWT to carve out those big advantages early.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And so far, I think Will is, it's not like he's had an outrageous banger, but he's had his moments. He's done the task at hand, which is be that tip of the spear, find the first kills when he can, but find those first kills under a situation that's significantly more tough to handle when you are doing that contact style, as you mentioned. They're going to go for a little bit of that early A pressure, try and make some sound, work their way back to B now in this space that Mummy has been keeping a watchful eye on. And they've really been doing a nice job at exploding into the B site and catching out close players. And Thief is in a catchable position yet again. I mean, I say that and he's picked the perfect moment to just sort of back off and play a more passive angle, which is very necessary.
They just solved this fake with the Viper Orb in tree, TWT. 3 players in YFP congregated around that part of the map for so long. Now they can start to go up tempo a little more. They actually do it behind the TP of Pancakes into sight with that ultimate here, so it's still not the most overwhelming rush. They don't find any contact in doing so. And 3 players grouped up in towards CT now. Player advantage for YFP. Mummy, though, is set up in his ancestral home of B main, as it seems. They might try and look to clear him with some of this utility. Turns the flash, Penny loses the duel hard, and Mummy eventually explodes there from B main. Beautiful timing here. TWT take a 7th round from the half on attack. That is nothing to sneer at.
That is natural synergy with this team, this newly formed roster in their second match. That they've been doing a great job of using Neptune's flashes consistently throughout these rounds to set up plays, but right there, they're in the 4v5. Flash comes over top, swing from every angle at the same time, everyone peeking together. That is beautiful. The fundamentals that bring a tear to the eye of Valorant nerds.
That was fantastic on a dime. You see his kill feed fill as Pancakes Takes the stairs peek while it's a speedway play. Instantly. 3 different angles all activating there in the post plant for TWT, and a very, very respectable round total here. And again, for YFP, how fast can they go? Obviously, they're playing much more of the sort of classic composition here, looking to leverage the Sova to make informed decisions.
TWT are set up for this. You know, if the B hit comes, we're stacked. If it goes A, Mummy gets a little bit of info. Maybe he can get a cheeky kill with the trip and fall off, just play for a retake. Trip is going to get broken by a nicely placed shock dart, just to keep Mummy guessing, apply a little bit of pressure. But with that cam still up, it won't be too much of a problem. Eyes on the catwalk with that one as well. Or rather, you know, when players go from the catwalk into grass, he'll have eyes on them with that cam.
TWT like to gamble sites and rely on Mummy to be a very self-sufficient anchor player. See, Mummy gets a ton of info. Sees this cross into tree here.
My eyes are down.
No instant movement from the defenders. They're not fully sold on this. YFP know that they have been spotted. I love the double face here in towards B main. Shoulder pick here from Thief. I don't know if Thief actually sees anything there, but now he's going to hear this paranoia. They're going to catch him. He's in trouble. And that's a huge kill on the B side of the map. Bones falls as now YFP have taken residence in mid.
I'm trying to find his timing, and he just does. Bones now in mid as well, in danger. Mummy is trying to follow this up, playing with some serious confidence there. Now 4-on-3 on the retake. Jonah is trying to make a play to even the odds, and the odds are even. Now going for more. Pretty confident.
I love the fast play from the defenders, though, spilling out from heaven now. Jonah trying to hold his ground. Here's Penny versus Wall, the 1 versus 1, and Will wins it out with 3. Beautiful stuff. Mummy really thought grass was covered. Obviously, the trigger discipline there from YFP. He still gets caught out, but the moment Mummy goes down, it feels like they just explode on that defense, realizing they're not all the players in YFP there.
I mean, you want some setup for Will. You've got it in that round. The play in B main with the paranoia, the flash, fully blinded as Thief, just trying to escape, Will dashing onto him. So nice. They are putting this guy in position.
30 seconds
and
left.
he is capitalizing off what his teammates are doing for him, how they're setting him up. That was a well-orchestrated round. Mummy playing his role on the A site perfectly, by the way. Did everything he needed to do in regard to just getting the information, staying alive, being in the right position.
Switch up here, Mummy over towards the B side now, and a sort of Viper wall thrown with 3 applications. Might be setting up here to allow Pancakes to be advantaged on a tree push. And again, still Thief shoulder peeking at B main.
At the beginning of last half, we had back-to-back thrifties beginning on this round. Just looking to see if TWT can stabilize here, not succumb to their inner demons of wanting to chase kills.
Unless they're paranoid already and you have a double face, then you can go for it, I guess.
Right.
All right, Poison Orb there. Physics Force back. We have the TP towards Y now. Oh, God, don't tell me it's happening again.
Oh,
Another thrifty back, please. Konpeki and Will now have to make this A-hold work, but you better leave. YFP are pulling out. Thief is embedded in B and now straight through to market to catch this rotate. Now, the timing means Will is going to be at CT, but TWT in a rough one.
30 seconds left.
Will needs to go crazy right now. Oh, spotted out. Both of them spotted the other. Has to be scared of the flank now. All right, Konpeki, a lot of patience on that A site. Had a feeling someone was going to be biding their time, trying to catch him rotating. Really heads up. Things are doable now in this 2-on-3 with the superior weaponry, but of course you're really looking at Will here, right? He's got the most HP in the server, the best gun in the server.
And 2 Spectres handed over to YFP amidst all of that. Recon up here for Physic and very limited utility for the defenders. Bones has a timing. Oh, it's a gorgeous timing. And that'll be the Vandal drop to the ground. Konpeki tries to take the face and Bones makes short work of him at just 1 HP.
That is brutality, but I can't even... You can't be mad at TWT when Jonah hits the shot wall dying to a molly. His shoes are on fire and he's hitting headshots in mid still somehow. The second one from the market swing is ridiculous. And we couldn't quite see what happened in grass, but it looked like, I mean, this is just ridiculous. And it looks like Penny, I think, just peeked and hit an instant one tap. I mean, that's just individual skill coming into play right there. And that's really what YFP had in spades, right? I mean, watching their game from last week, didn't feel like there was a massive difference between YFP and their opponents in terms of the macro game. It was YFP's individual prowess that pushed them over the edge.
Absolutely. They're really scrappy, Wyatt. Something we're starting to see with those last couple of rounds. We have lane control now. Again, a little bit of clearing needed to be done here. Maybe a shock darting towards main to get rid of that trip. YFP forced on back here. That paranoia does hit true. We'll have a reset now. We're down under a minute in the round.
And similar to what echoed TWT last time when they were on defense, it's a 1-4 setup with a Sentinel controlling B main, but this time YFP, they don't fall for it. They don't walk into that stack. They go for the long rotation. We'll see if Mummy can make some more magic happen. He's been solid so far.
He had to reposition. He was so exposed in B main, but in long he gets spotted straight away. 4 up now for TWT. All forced to play from behind that smoke in CT. And Bones is keeping people here at A for the time being. Pancakes. Gravel that cam gets removed.
Yeah, the drone spotted the cam, dealt nullifies so much information. And be they have now they're not going to have that. They're not going to have the drone, right? I mean, Mummy's just luckily.
That's beautifully well timed. Jonas forced off the trade angle. There it is. Pancakes. Oh, yeah. Seen this one before. Mummy, though, great swing off. That is paranoid for much of it. Can't quite hold out to take care of Thief, but damage is absolutely done. You got your judge value.
30 seconds
YFP still with plenty of money into the next round here, but with only 16 HP and a dream, Thief is in trouble walking into what appears to be a crossfire. It can be sectioned off here, but the discipline from TWT, we've seen this a lot from these guys, especially without that info from Sova. They just sit back and they just wait.
These guys really do have a natural chemistry about them with the fundamentals of the game. They are set up for each other in these situations. Despite lacking information, they have a good sense of where everyone is and what they're watching, what they need to be watching, trading for each other, right? And that's really, in a round like that, that is what gets them the victory. It's gotten them the victory on several rounds now.
The temptation, Wyatt, to contact for info when you don't have Sova is extremely strong. Yet TWT aren't really succumbing to that.
Absolutely. Gonna be a quick TP from Bones. He's gonna stick it. Paranoia into back gen. I mean, it looks like that would have been cool if there was an A hit coming in at the same time, but he's very early. And still, though, it's resulted in this awful situation for the defenders where they don't know where to look.
I have no idea. Konpeki stops that 8 here with a with a snake bite, which is beautiful. TWT, look at this recovery. Penny's going to do it all again. Neptune presents him a moving target, and Pancakes is going to be there to finish the job. Bones gets behind them and gets a free kill from Heaven. Surely they're dead to rights from there on out. What on earth?
There's a world where that was a very cool round from YFP, and all the timings were hit perfectly. The players on site, they didn't know what to do. There's bullets flying from every angle, utility everywhere. Not the world we're living in, but you could see what they were going for with that. It just didn't quite pan out. It was a cool idea, though. If that execute had, been kind of timed with that paranoia into back gen where they explode on the site, those defenders would have been, they were cooked. They were absolutely cooked. 1,000 degrees, they're done. But it just doesn't end up working out that way. It just allowed enough time for some of the rotates to get there.
Pancakes made incredible use of that smoke at gen in that round, meaning that, he didn't have to worry about the threat from Heaven behind him. He can face the tree push, sit in May, and end up with 3 kills at the end of the round. That's going to take the wind out of your sails. I don't blame YFP for feeling frustrated, but Konpeki has the presence of mind. He's playing off the one way in A main anyway. So that is obviously going to force you to be a bit slower, but then he ensures that by playing one and throws that snake bite down. So no one's pushing. Bones' timing is off. He's the only player over towards Heaven. Yes, gets a free kill, but they can't just, they can't swarm into the site off that. They're out of time on either side of that pincer, which gives everything TWT need to get back into the round.
That was the perfect time for a timeout after a round really, you just struggle to make the idea actually form into reality on a round like that, and you need to take a timeout, and the economy's starting to slip. Of course, it's decent enough for this round, though, with Penny having the knives online. Now an operator to deal with. Will picking that one up.
Oh, dear.
Angle down mid. Oh, my God. Oh, Thief. My man is lucky to be alive. Lucky to still be standing in main.
That is pretty massive there. Mummy just spamming off an intuition. Gets a huge chunk of damage. Awkward here for Will. That Aldrone will force him off that position. Penny with the knives would probably love to capitalize on a little bit of that space being opened up, and TWT, they give it up in mid. We have the rotation to CT here now for Will.
Up that B main angle. The setup on B is going to be really tough to crack. Dealing with the operator, dealing with, actually repositioning now is Neptune. They're going to get into a bit of a deeper sight hold here. They're really expecting this. They're rather preparing for a big hit to come in here with these backside positions.
Oh, that's beautiful. Quiet. Penny just rolled over the top of Mummy there. He was flashed initially. Will's not ready for the angle. Awkward, the operator. Oh, Pancakes out of absolutely nowhere, though. Gets involved in the fight. Beautiful use of that ultimate. Bones are going to be up close and personal with the stinger. This is scary for Pancakes. Tough to extricate yourself from that kind of situation. And Konpeki is on the other side of the map. Beautiful, thrifty conversion again from YFP on one of those pivotal rounds of the entire map.
Yeah, that classic flash over top B with the jet dash up draft with the knives, the whole thing going on, right? Where you try to get that first pick onto site, and that's exactly what Penny did. And also just, despite not being able to capitalize on a second backsite, still was so significant of a distraction and a time waste that it allowed the other players to scale so quickly into sight. And, with 2 players caught in the back there, they are just going to get swarmed and gunned down, which is exactly what happened. So Penny really doing everything possibly requested of him on that round, stepping up in the necessary moments post timeout to keep the team in the game.
That's what we want to see, Wyatt. That is what we want to see. Konpeki able to get away with his life and weapon. But have a look at that. So many of them picked up here by YFP. Man, Will having a much better showing this time around, right? A lot of eyes on him to see how he sort of fits in. But that's just uncomfortable. You saw the TP into Boathouse by Pancakes to try and cover for him, at least set up a 1-2. But with the operator, I'm surprised he actually rotated out from CT and, embedded himself deeper on that B side.
Now on this round, no op for Will. Money not good enough for that. They're going to go for an aggressive little take of A main with that one-way molly as well. to just shut down the choke. And in the meantime, Mame has his cam set up in B main to just get that information there. And considering how far back Thief is, TWT can be pretty steadfast in their play towards A. They're going to know if anything's coming B, and it's certainly not.
Flash
Great
and
paranoia.
Flash. Two of them to force them back, and Penny is caught in the corner. Molly coming down. Penny trying to get across. It's going to be a trade at least. Jonah has the presence of mind to swing off that briefly, Wyatt, to get the 1-for-1.
That was a great paranoia, great double molly. That's tough when you've got the vulnerability from the snake bite and the KO molly on top of you.
The cutting noise.
Look at this. Trying to info gather, a bit of a repush from TWT, flashing out of that smoke, but in doing so, they've totally given up that A site, which is now going to be taken essentially for free. Hunter's Fury coming through. That's not going to catch a thing. Not expecting the flank at all either. Now look at this. They can pop the KO ultimate if they want.
30 seconds.
Get in there right now.
Here's the lockdown.
Yeah, the lockdown is still going to be able to go down though.
Yeah, you ain't getting this. You are going to have to wait, because together we are terrific. And then maybe instantly into an L command from Neptune. Yeah, he pops it straight away. In we go. Kinpeki trying to wait for the timing in A main here. He's going to be faced by two players. This is a scary one, but look at that info coming now from that neural theft of Bones. Oh, he exposes himself. Now it's just Jonah from heaven having to play through this, bringing Neptune down, but that is it. Together we are terrific. What a recovery after a very awkward encounter in A main.
That was patience and perfection on that retake. Having to wait out that KJ ultimate, the lockdown, but it was all good. Just Mame was, he was ready to throw his hat and get the information off that ult as soon as it was over. Instant null command. And I mean, the way that just set up that little flank on Cat, I mean, that was truly perfection. Everything they could have done to win out that retake, they did. Really well done. This team play from TWT is quite impressive for a team this new. I mean, this Will has been on the team for what, 10 days or something like that at this point? It hasn't been a long time. They've only played one match together, and they're really, really displaying some quality teamwork here. Taking the time out now as well, just wanting to iron things out, ensure the victory here as they're, on map point.
I love the setup at the start of that round from TWT on defense. They actually pinging the offensive 0-point location because they're stacking at site. They're gambling A, and they don't want to get spotted out on that. They're able to hide themselves away. I don't think there's a 0-point actually until the attackers actually start hitting, in which they swing, double flash, find the kill. It ends up being a trade. I've got to give it to YFP. They cut noise entirely. They double pump. They end up coming back in towards A main, a site that TWT had already rotated off of to try and get that mid re-clear. TWT definitely in a bit of a tough position to sort of come back in, especially Wyatt after the lockdown had already gone off. So they had to be very quick about that.
All right, the Viper wall is getting placed to cover mid and B main, and see Will's going to go for a bit of a walk down, hold close here in middle. Try and dodge out that recon. Whoa, that is cheeky, if intentional. I'm not sure if that's awkward or cheeky or somewhere between.
They still force Will off that angle again. Rifling in this round, but the Aldrone still represents a significant degree of threat. Oh, it's good. It's so good from Pancakes. Now TP to reposition. The mid presence for the attack is weaker. Neptune, Molly to slow things up here. He's probably worried about a hit from B main, and he's right. Here comes that null command. Neptune trying to back away. We'll have both these defenders embedded here on the B side to try and anchor and buy time for Pancakes, who's on his way. Another great timing for Pancakes, so he brings down Jonah and Marketer. No one's there to pick him back up. YFP struggling now down to 3. Try and make the play from Speedway, but Will whips one on him. Penny has to double down to get presence here on the side. And YFP with 2, able to make something happen. TWT, though, set up for this sort of retake. Not a lot of that retake utility available. There's a snake bite for Kinpeki, at least.
Yeah, that's really going to be all. Perhaps, you can snake bite back default or place it at one of the doorways and backside, but this is really just going to come down to successful trading with the numbers advantage.
How do they stack this? Ooh, Penny on stairway. A freebie, perhaps. Not quite the kill, but still significant damage. Bringing Pancakes very low. Now, assuming a new angle, but Kinpeki's going to be ready for it, and Thief is down to 10. Just 10. Pancakes. Crucial kills in every part of the round. That is stunning positioning. Catching these beautiful timings.
Penny's going to be slamming his desk after that one. He found the perfect timing to even things up 2-2, but just whiffs, barely whiffs at the end. And that snake bite cutting off the one angle, making things just a tad bit easier on those trades into backside. Again, TWT just doing exactly what is asked of them. Every little test that they're having to undergo to actually win these rounds, they are stepping up. They're playing such proper, solid Valorant. It's really, really impressive. This team is just so new. You would never, I just don't think you would really expect it from a team this young, right?
And they're handling the pressure from a scrappy, aggressive YFP really well, Wyatt, who had some pretty clever rotations of their... Oh my goodness, really? The tripwire catches Jonah. They walk straight into that one. They have Sova, but cannot clear that util in main. Becky playing on site here. That's a bit risky. Penny able to catch him out, and Neptune finally notes Penny's location, but needs to give some room here as the spam comes in from hell. Here's the plant.
Not a ton of utility to retake with. Mummy just gets a spam kill. He's going to get the cam in as well. TP for a bit more info. Will dashing in, trying to make some space, but Neptune not really able to capitalize off of it. It's Mummy, though, who is swinging in from heaven.
Enemy remaining.
Pancakes now, he's stepped up so massively this past couple rounds. Neptune finishing things off. Oh my god, TWT look good. I mean, this looks like a different team than we even saw from just last week, just 8 days ago, however long it was. A totally different team, Mitch.
I mean, look, it starts with getting so many of those attacking rounds, right? Getting a 7-round attacking half, come in, win the pistol. Yeah, okay, we won't mention the fact that there's almost always a thrifty loss after that pistol.
Yeah, that was unfortunate.
You know, suffered that on a couple of occasions, but you can't account for, like, you know, Jonah just like getting insane, you know, 3Ks through mid. But in general, they're disciplined and well drilled, and this is kind of something we teased at, right? We are looking for the protocols on Ascent to be rock solid for a team that's coming together with little notice. Will also standing up, Wyatt, having a really solid game. Mummy and Thief, it's like an epic tale of two rats just trying to get to the cheese first over so much of that map there. Some really interesting lurk play. And Konpeki and Pancakes both always seem to have these sick mid-round timings.
I'm also just watching this very odd single initiator on Ascent comp work in the context of this game. Listen, I'm not gonna jump out the window and just ride or die for this comp, but at least within the context of this game, that was an impressive job with it for sure. And they had some interesting ideas of sort of playing off some of that Viper utility in a way that kind of makes the typical Sova or other initiator utility, you know, not as desperately needed as you typically would on the map, right? But again, I'm not gonna go ride or die for this comp, but they did a very nice job with it. And really, for me, the hallmark of that game and of the team in that game is just the fundamentals and that natural synergy that they have together for a new team is so impressive. And they already look so much better than they did last week, which is really impressive. And it, you know, leaves me excited for the rest of the series, but also I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it's like, damn, where could this team go, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I'm excited for the next map because there will be the first time this split we have seen Sunset. Stick around for map number 2 in this series between Together We Are Terrific and YFP Gaming. 1-0 to TWT. Much more to come on the other side of these messages.
What do you think made the best off-season roster move?
In general, or like in Challengers? I guess how to say, like Oxygen?
Probably be Oxygen. OXG.
Oxygen getting Dapper is good.
Dapper?
Honestly, Dapper has been really good for the team.
I'm going to have to say Dapper is a really good asset to them with his experience and his CS background.
The best roster move I've seen this offseason has to be the Oxygen switch they made with Dapper. Now they have like the fracking power of Inferno, Redux.
I think the pickup of Dapper is very strong. Veteran player with a lot of young players like Werner and Redux.
But you have these very young kids that are so good, and you have these 2 vets as well. And I think their coach, Bonchar, is a very good coach.
They've been playing really good. They're like the only other team that's really been playing officials.
You've seen it as well. They've been competing for the offseason against franchise teams. And I think they look just as good. So
I think the Moist X Shopify team.
I think Moist made a good change, honestly.
think we made some really good moves. Like, I think us for sure made some very, very big moves. All of us are very, very happy and confident with them. I don't know. Every other team seems pretty just solid.
If I'm not being biased, obviously our team, like my team.
Other than that, I'm gonna have to say M80.
I guess us or MXS. When I first saw their roster change, I was like, but like now I know who they're picking up now, so it's kind of like that guy will definitely make their team a lot better.
What do you think will be the most used primary weapon this season? The Phantom or the Van?
Me, it's gonna be the Op, but probably Phantom.
Phantom.
Actually, I think we use the Phantom more than anything. I think there's a statistic out there that said that North American players use the Phantom more often than not.
Certain comps, I just feel like it's more viable with like spamming.
Online, I feel like it's Vandal, but if you're on LAN with actual zero ping, then it's Phantom for sure.
Probably be the Vandal. I think I've seen a lot more people move to the Vandal over the Phantom, especially in Challengers compared to a VCT, but I'd say the Vandal.
I'm thinking the Vandal with this new Challengers roster.
I think the Vandal, I don't know, it's just traditionally just like everyone's coming in for the head, whereas like in Counter-Strike, a lot of people would spray, so if it was Counter-Strike, maybe like the Phantom would be used more, but I think the Vandal would just always dominate, to be honest, just because of the first bullet headshot.
The most used primary gun is probably going to be the Vandal. I can't say Phantom mainly because the Outlaw buff and the armor nerf, like it doesn't make sense to use the Phantom more than the Vandal.
I like both, me personally. Would probably be the Vandal because of the new Outlaw. You have to buy full armor.
I feel like the Vandal right now, everyone is just so hyper-focused on these headshots and the angles and the positions that favor the Vandal. No one's really spraying as much because of the ammo nerf. It makes people want to take their time a little more and aim more precise, which is a good thing, but the Phantom still is a solid gun. I think the Vandal is going to get used the most this season.
Peace.